Hey Bat fans, Luke here, back ready to talk this week's main Bat release, and this one is Batman issue number 45, and I'll be honest, I was super stoked for this particular issue, because it starts a story that involves Tony S. Daniel on art. Now, Tony S. Daniel is not necessarily my favorite artist, and no disrespect to him, he's a phenomenal talent. He's far from my favorite. I really do gotta do that top 10 Batman artist video again. That's coming. But I will say, Tony S. Daniel, if he's not on that top 10, he's definitely an honorable mention. He's a phenomenal talent, and what's good about him is that he brings back, for me anyway, a whole lot of nostalgia for a period of Bat books that were, if not really good to look at least at a minimum, the stories were pretty good as well. Save Detective, and I'll get to that in a minute. Tony S. Daniel, if you don't know him, specifically in the Bat world, he did some stuff with Superman and Wonder Woman. He did some Deathstroke, etc., etc. But for Batman, you might remember him during the Grant Morrison run, specifically on Batman R.I.P. Then he did Battle for the Cow. Then you would have saw him on Eye of the Beholder. And then during the New 52, he was doing the writing and the art on Detective, which I think he was doing that on Batman. At least not all of Batman. Some of Batman pre-New 52. But Detective, that first 2 volumes, was definitely him on story and art. And while those stories were, again, good to look at, the stories, as far as the plot and the dialogue and whatnot, left something to be desired. So I think he exited stage left on Detective circa around, I want to say issue 13, somewhere around there, right before John Layman picked up with Jason Fabok. Then after Detective, again, he kind of did some of the other stuff. And then right toward the end of the New 52/DCU, you would have saw him on the quote-unquote the premier artist, even though he did a lot of the covers, and as far as issue-wise, I only think he only did like 3 or 4. As a premier artist for Batman Robin Eternal. So Batman fans should be no stranger to Tony S. Daniel, and I will say that continues. The art in this was great. The cover here by Tony S. Daniel, it pops off, and I love the design they came up with Batman hovering over Gotham, and then obviously where the bat symbol will be on his chest is obviously the bat symbol on the sky at the bottom with Gotham. But as good as this cover is, I gotta give the nod, that will be the back of that issue, to this week's variant, which is the Jim Lee variant for Batman, obviously issue number 45. This paying homage to the 1000th issue of Action Comics, as well as the 80th anniversary of Superman as a whole. So tip your cap to the Great Blue Boy Scout. What I like about this cover is not only is the art by Jim Lee just fantastic, it took out some of the, what I think is sometimes, I'm not going to say the unnecessary part, but it really showcases the art in this, whereas it takes out some of the distractions you might see on the cover or the banner whatnot. Just kind of puts, like, the admin stuff there at the bottom. I mean, really showcase the art. So I don't know if this is going to be a continual thing. I kind of hope it is, because at least maybe with just the variant covers, because they got some really good talent going on doing variants, kind of like exclusively. As much as I don't like, we won't go there. One that's really been good, and I only got one by part of the reasons why I gave the story a try, is Deathstroke. Francisco Mattina. He's been doing variant covers on Deathstroke, and I think he did a couple, or as he continued doing, Flash as well. But let those supreme talents really showcase their craft. So I kind of like this. I hope they kind of continue it. But as far as the art in this issue, again, great cover. I'll give the nod to the variant in this one, but still great cover. The art inside, fantastic. The one that was like really kind of just really knew, I was like, man, he still got it. It's this one page he did with Batman. Yeah, you see Batman with a gun. Oh my lord. Okay, calm down. Calm down, everybody. Let's breathe. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay. This is not Bruce Wayne Batman. This is Dick Grayson Batman. Again, calm down. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Breathe in. Breathe out. We'll get back to that in a minute. Everyone, just calm down. I initially kind of did the same thing you did, so if you haven't read this, just chill out. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, his Batman is just great. Then he did another page, of which I'm really excited for this. 25 cents, heck yeah. DC Nation coming out here pretty darn soon. Where is it? Where is it? It's the one where he's... That's another good one. But one that has Booster Gold, which, by the way... Oh, yeah, No Justice. No Justice. I am cautiously excited for this. So, take that as you will. This goes into the critique I have about Tony S. Daniel. We'll get to that in a minute, even though it's Duke Thomas. All right, yeah. So, I mean, you look at his art, and this is the one-page splash, Booster Gold busting through window. So, just phenomenal art. Again, some of the critique I'll have of Tony S. Daniel. Man, looks like, oh yeah, Bendis is coming great. Man, that's another one. It's like, the more and more I see it, the less and less I get excited. I'm trying to go in there, give him a try, but we'll see. So, all in all, the color, or the art by... Tony S. Daniel is great. But I do want to get into the guy. Yeah, I'll show it. The full-page splash of Booster Gold. I mean, great. So, by the way, when I'm talking about this, if it sounds like I don't know too much about Booster Gold, you'd be exactly right. My prior knowledge of Booster Gold is minimal at best. So, if I'm stumbling around, just give me a little bit of room, a little bit of leeway, a little bit of forgiveness. I'm out of my expertise, if you call this at all expertise, with Booster Gold. So, continuing on, the critique I have of Tony S. Daniel, which there is one. Alright, so you'll see it here in this page where just look at the nose. It just looks really odd. Then we'll see it again. Definitely when Ra's and Talia are fighting. You'll even see it here. See if my camera will zoom in. Get in focus. Come on, you can do it. Hope my battery's not about to die. When my phone gets low, it's what starts to happen. There, and then we'll just go right to the one with Ra's and Talia, because that really does just showcase it. Oh, yeah, Duke. The thing I don't like about Tony S. Daniel's art, which, again, he's great with the exception of one, sometimes his facial designs just look really off. Just look at the dimensions we have between the eyes and Duke's nose. Duke is not my favorite to begin with. That said, this doesn't help much. Yeah, we'll move on. I don't want to get stuck on that page. Okay, but really when it comes down to, come on phone, zoom in. I don't know if it's going to zoom in. If it doesn't, you're just going to just bear with me and just, I guess, take my word for it. His nose, too. I mentioned before about the facial designs as being kind of off. His noses, the way Tony S. Daniel does them, they look really pointed and, again, out of dimensions and just looks off. And they look really slopey. And it does that a lot. As you see there with Ra's, it looks like a perfect triangle. And I think you can kind of get away with that when he's wearing the cowl. But if it's just your normal face, it's just one thing it just didn't ring true with me. So, save that. The art is great as always with Tony S. Daniel. Real good issue to look at. Story-wise, this is a pretty simple story. In that what happens is that Booster Gold had decided to give Batman, for his wedding present, a really special wedding present. And it's going to remind you of Back to the Future. And I will link Batman and Back to the Future here very shortly. Bear with me. So what he's done, he's gone back in time. And as part of his gift, he went back in time and prevented the death of Bruce's parents. But just as we kind of seen in Back to the Future, when... Do you remember the picture when Marty had. You kind of see it more in Velvet, I'm getting ready to say, and think part 2 a lot, but and part 3 a little bit. But let's just stick with part 1. I think a lot of people at least seen Back to the Future part 1. So the picture they had of Marty and his brother and his sister. Once he started interacting with his parents, you started to see the picture of his brother and his sister, and eventually him a little bit, start to fade away because his interactions in the past started to impact, obviously, things that will lead to their birth in present day, which was in the future. Obviously, you've seen the movie, guy. But this is where kind of Doc Brown says, hey, if you kind of mess around with events in the past, you kind of create that splintered reality where things aren't what they seem. Well, that's exactly what happened in this, is that when Booster went back in time to prevent the death of Bruce's parents, it created this splintered reality. One where you see Hal Jordan just being rogue and just not himself, to the point he's like, yeah, I'll push the limits. I'm going to see if this ring will prevent me from, basically killing myself in the head, because if I had enough control, the ring would control. However, if you do enough discipline, it would override it, and I didn't really do any justice. But that's basically the gist. You see in an alternate reality with Tim Drake. But the best one, we'll get back to the Batman thing in a minute. The one that was really interesting was the one they have with Jason Todd, where Jason Todd in this reality is basically selling tires, and his pitch is that, hey, all those jokers running around Gotham stealing your tires, hey, I got something, and it will basically shoot an electric shock at the people trying to steal your tires, which, again, this is hilarious, because if you know anything about Jason Todd's history, especially in the trade Second Chances, it was actually seen and collected in the issues of Batman. That's how Jason actually got introduced to Batman. He was actually caught stealing the tires off the Batmobile. So I thought this was kind of funny, again, playing off additional reality. And going back to Batman, and again, this is not Bruce Wayne Batman. This is Dick Grayson Batman. One that doesn't have the values and the moral compass, or the value is probably a better way of saying it, of Bruce Wayne, where, hey, we're not going to sit there and use guns. We're not going to sit there and kill. So basically, he had events that had Dick Grayson had his parents taken away from him, but there wasn't the saving grace of Bruce to kind of keep him from going too far over the edge, which is kind of odd considering how Bruce kind of operates. But this is like an unfiltered Dick Grayson, didn't have, again, that mentorship, who kind of adopted the ways of Batman, and with the extreme of using violence and whatnot. So basically what this issue comes down to, again, it's Booster Gold realizing that, hey, I made a mistake, so I got to sit there and find Bruce, and we're going to have to correct this mistake I made. Good intentions, I got it. Hey, it was a good wedding present. Hey, let's get your parents back. But here's the problem. So what he's done, and this kind of comes into the fatal flaw of the issue, is that he goes to Bruce, who's dancing with his parents, or actually his mother in this. And he says, hey, don't know if you know me or not, but hey, as part of your wedding gift, I gave you this opportunity, and I went back in time. I prevented the death of your parents, but hey, oops, my bad. Hey, this was a big mistake. It's created things, an altered reality, and things that are just way out of whack, and I love you, brother, and all, but hey, we need to kind of dial this back. And you see Bruce kind of say, hey, you know what, I knew this was coming. I have visions of, my parents' death and dreams and whatnot, and I saw you eventually coming, and then you think Bruce is going to have some kind of clarity and kind of see where Booster Gold's coming, but yeah, basically what he does is destroys the little robot that's falling around Booster Gold, which is actually kind of like the time machine, and so there went that. So we're left on this cliffhanger where Bruce is basically shut the door that initially might lead to Booster Gold kind of correcting the mistake he did, which now leads this alternate reality, which is a total 180 of what we kind of know, how people interact, and what the status quo is in the current day. That's it. I just want to go ahead and mention the fatal flaw in this, because this was actually a good issue. The whole thing with Booster Gold, what he's trying to do, I get it. He wants to self-correct what he's done. The problem is, the fatal flaw is that he went back in time, prevented the death of Bruce's parents. He did that, and easily could, in theory, do it by himself. He didn't really say if it's in the book that he did it himself, but you can see it. But if that's the case, why come back to a present day where you're saying, hey, we need to go back and kind of correct the mistake I did because it's created all these problems? And he's basically asking for Bruce's help to do it, and which kind of left for like a door to remain open for Bruce to kind of prevent that from happening. And I thought that was kind of I don't want to say a shortcut, because reality, if Brewster Gold went back to time, prevented the death of Bruce's parents himself, he could have easily gone back by himself and kind of corrected the mistake he did. So, yeah, that was kind of a flaw in logic there. But if you can kind of get past that, there's another one, and I'm not making a big deal out of it. Bruce mentions in the story that, hey, this is basically his birthday, and then toward the end he mentions to Booster Gold that this was his parents' anniversary, and Tom King mentioned in Twitter, and Twitter can be a douchebag place sometimes. People kind of jump off the ledge on what really is important, which is kind of like, look, it was an honest mistake, I got it. He said that, it's going to be corrected in digital and trade. And yeah, the editors probably should have caught it. But, I mean, Tom King admitted his mistake, and let's not persecute the guy. That said, I do kind of want to know, was this his birthday or was this anniversary? Because if this was his parents' anniversary, this would be totally ironic and one that would be kind of interesting. So, I mean, it's a mistake. I got it. This is why you can't give this thing like a perfect issue, even though I wouldn't. But it's still not as bad. Unless something comes up later that, you definitely need that context as far as what day it is, but I doubt it is. So let's chillax a little bit with the criticism of Tom King on Twitter and that as well. That said, I really kept this page up. I cannot stand. I'm sorry, Bat fans. I just cannot stand Duke Thomas. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Overall, fun issue. Very fun issue. Great arc. Got me intrigued for what's going to happen. I don't know if this is 2 or 3 issues. I think we're going to have a very short story arc before the wedding. We have Mikhail Janin back on art. We're dealing with the Joker and his reaction to the wedding, which I'm really stoked for. But this is good. Tony S. Daniel art, great. I would give this... I'm going to give it a 3, and this is why I'm only going to give it a 3. I kind of limit the 0.5s, the 2.5s in the rank. I kind of like to keep it the whole and the half numbers, so like 3, 3.5, 4. I would say this is a very high 3. This would be flirting on a 3.5. Save 2 issues, the fatal flaw in logic, that would kind of bump it down. And even though, again, I'm not persecuting Tom King, that little typo there, maybe drop it a little bit down from that as well. So, in all honesty, that's probably what's preventing this thing from being a 3.5. But still, great issue, fun issue, a very high 3, again, flirting on a 3.5. If anything else, again, great art, and I'm excited for where this is going to go. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on Batman issue number 45. Hit me up in the comments below what you thought about this issue. We'll bat chat and go from there. Next video, I still have Weidman and Geyer on the standby at the ready. I actually got my books this morning, so I was able to read it before I went to the gym and whatnot. So at some point, if my next shipment of books kind of backfires, Weidman and Geyer will be up next. Or if I have free time between now and then, I'll definitely hit that book up as well. Until then, take care.